When the lights went out that night in Denver, the house fell into a sudden darkness that seemed to swallow every sound. It was one of those late summer storms that rolled across Colorado, turning a warm evening into a restless night. Lightning cracked through the sky, thunder followed, and just like that, the power was gone. I was standing in the kitchen, searching for candles when my stepson Ethan walked in. Ethan was 17, tall, and always full of energy. He had just finished his high school football practice earlier that day, and I could still see the lingering exhaustion on his face. Yet his smile was steady, the kind of smile that reminded me of his late mother, kind, open, and warm. "Power's out across the block," Ethan said, holding up his phone, which was already down to 30% battery. "Want me to check the fuse box?" I shook my head. "It's not the fuse, Ethan. It's the storm. We'll have to wait it out." He stepped closer to the counter where I was fumbling around in the dark. The refrigerator hummed down to silence, and for a brief moment, the house felt empty without its usual sounds. Ethan leaned closer, trying to help me find the lighter I had placed near the stove earlier that week. In that quiet closeness, with only flashes of lightning lighting his face, I suddenly felt the strange weight of responsibility. Ethan wasn't my biological son, but ever since I had married his father, Mark, I had promised myself that I would treat him with the same care as if he were. We had our disagreements. What teenager doesn't have them with their parent figure? But over the years, we had formed something like trust. That night, though, in the dark kitchen, when he came too close, I realized how fragile trust could be. "Here it is," Ethan said softly, his hand brushing against mine as he passed me the lighter. The touch startled me only because of the silence, the stillness, and the storm. It was innocent. Completely innocent, but my mind betrayed me with the thought that closeness can be misunderstood. I quickly lit the candle, and the soft glow filled the room. Ethan's face was calm, his eyes reflecting the light, and I felt relief. Relief that the darkness no longer ruled the space between us. Relief that I could see him clearly for what he was. Just a kid, growing, learning, still in need of guidance. "You okay?" he asked, his voice carrying genuine concern. "Yeah," I said with a small laugh. "Just startled. The storm always makes me jumpy." We sat at the kitchen table, the candle between us, and listened to the rain beating against the windows. In moments like that, when the outside world seemed so chaotic, the inside of the house felt like a fragile little universe. Ethan leaned back, his chair creaking, and for the first time in a while, he opened up. "You know," he said quietly, "sometimes I feel like I don't belong anywhere. Not at school, not here. I mean, I know Dad loves me, and you've been amazing, but it's like I'm always on the edge of everyone's world." My chest tightened. He wasn't talking about the storm anymore. He was talking about the silent storm inside him. "Ethan," I said gently, "you belong here more than you realize. Families aren't about blood. They're about choice. And I chose to be in your life, not because I had to, but because I wanted to." He looked at me, really looked at me, and in that moment, I understood the weight he carried as a teenager trying to find his place in a complicated world. The closeness that had felt so awkward just moments ago now transformed into something else, an unspoken reminder that young people often need reassurance, not distance. The storm raged on outside, but inside, with the flickering candlelight, Ethan talked about his dreams, his fears, and his uncertainties about the future. He wanted to go to college, but he worried about letting his father down if he chose a path that wasn't sports. He wanted to make friends who truly understood him, not just teammates who cheered when he scored. I listened. That was all he needed, someone who listened. By the time the storm began to quiet, Ethan had grown more comfortable. He even laughed, a sound that eased my heart. We played a small game with shadows on the wall, creating silly shapes with our hands like we were children again. In that laughter, I saw him not as a stepson, not as a teenager trapped in confusion, but as a young man learning to become himself. When the power finally came back hours later, the hum of the refrigerator and the glow of the lights returned, but the moment remained. That night changed something. Not in a dramatic, loud way, but in a quiet, permanent one. Ethan no longer seemed like a boy I had to protect from misunderstandings. He seemed like a son I was proud to guide. The next morning, Mark came into the kitchen and saw the burnt-down candle on the table. He smiled. Looks like you two survived the storm without me. I smiled back. We did more than survive. We talked. Ethan, grabbing his backpack, grinned too. Yeah, Dad. Turns out the power going out wasn't such a bad thing. As I watched him leave for school, I realized that sometimes storms don't just knock out the lights, they reveal what's been hidden in the shadows all along. In the dark kitchen that night, Ethan had come too close, not in a way that broke boundaries, but in a way that broke silence. And that closeness was exactly what we both needed.